I find myself standing in my opinion, one of the most beautiful places I've seen. It's the city of Hierapolis. I'm going to read a lot of history right now from my phone because I really want you to appreciate some of the places in Asia Minor in which the Apostle John came here, Paul came here, and also the legend is, or the history tells us that Philip died in this place. It's actually located 10 miles east of the Meander River and the Lycus River, which meets the Lycus Valley. And it's 6 miles north of Laodicea. We were in Laodicea earlier today, and this is 6 miles north. And it provides the hot springs, the thermal bath, that the water, the hot water versus the cold water from, the Nisli, all the way to get to Laodicea. There's a lot of history here, and I want to really read a lot of it. I'm reading from the Cities of the New Testament, the book by David Graves. And although this is not one of the churches of Revelation, I wanted to share with you the importance of this place in regards to biblical history. Now, it's interesting because the Book of Colossians talks about this place. It doesn't give you any history, but it talks about it. And I want to give you some historical accounts. So when you read the book of Colossians in chapter 4, and it mentions this city, you know what it's referring to. It says, Strabo talks about it, the historian, tells you a little bit about this, about the springs. What you see here behind me is very significant. Let me read to you what it says. It says, the springs were famous in ancient times because they were supposed to possess divine healing powers, but were also used by the ancients for dyeing. Strabo testifies about this. And this is important with Laodicea. When you connect the city of Laodicea and the merchandising and the marketing and the dye, they had wool. They had the wool from the sheep and things like that, and they were known for the wool. Now I know that the waters from the thermals, they will help in the dyeing of the wool to make it a high quality. And here it says, the springs were famous in ancient times because they're supposed to possess divine healing powers and were also used in the ancients for dyeing. Strabo, dyeing the wool. Strabo testified that the waters of the Hierapolis, which means, by the way, the holy city. And it's interesting because the modern day, if you span over to the white here, they call it the White Castle. The name in the Turkey city calls White Castle or Cotton Castle because of the white. It looks like cotton, so they call it that by the modern name. So it says this: the waters at Hierapolis is remarkably adapted also to the dyeing of wool, so that the wool dye with its roots rival that dye of the kermes, of which the marine purple, the murex, where the tejelets come from. Okay, and the supply of water is so abundant that the city is full of natural bath in this particular area. So I think that it's really important for us to understand that the Bible, when it mentions a city, it's not mentioning it by chance. It's trying to give you information that sometimes we don't understand it or we don't really think about it until we study a lot of the information that we see here. Not only was this an imperial city, it was actually established during the time of the Seleucid period, during the time of the Antiochus I. And then later on, it became a Roman province in the district of Phrygia. Because it's very important that we understand that the different districts in the Asia Minor. So here is a very important traffic, a route. The route is not too far from Laodicea. It's actually in the same line as it is Philadelphia, and then later on Sardis and Thyatira. So it's all a whole sequence of routes and streets, roads, Roman roads that connect them all together. And this is one of those important cities of the ancient Roman Empire, as well as the Greco-Roman world, and even before that, because of its obvious beauty, obvious healing powers. We know that this was a neocortos. In other words, the Roman Empire granted it a very special title because they dedicated the city to the emperor, building a temple for him, thus giving imperial cult. The imperial cult, the worship to the emperor. But it's interesting because there's a historical account, and I'm reading from David Graves' book, Cities of the New Testament, and I wanted to read it because I think it's very important that when we read a name of a city in the New Testament, we take the time to verify and validate some of the information. Okay, it's strictly from historical accounts. It says in the early Roman period, this is very important. Okay, it says according to the inscriptions, the town's patron for this city, Hierapolis, which means sacred city or holy city, was Apollo. So Apollo was worshipped here, and that was the temple to Apollo at one point. Okay, and therefore now you have a Roman temple in the 3rd century AD. Now, what's really interesting about this that I'm reading is talking, saying though Though it's called the Holy City, Hierapolis was peculiarly regarded as the stronghold of Satan. It's interesting about that. For there was a plutonium or hole reaching far down into the ground, into the earth, from which there issued a vapor. Now this is important because sometimes we don't realize in Delphi was the same thing. They had the priest and priestess of Delphi, and they will go into a place, and that's where speaking in tongues come from. Okay? And this is a very important thing we need to talk about. It says, the vapor that proceeded from underneath in this area here, even poisoning the birds flying above, it is supposed that upon a stool, a deep in the plutonium, a priest or a priestess sat, and when under the influence of the vapor, uttered prophecies in regards to the person asking for them. So not only was this a very important place for trading, it was very well known for coppersmith, purple dyes, nail workers, livestock, watermills, engineers, farmers, and very different types of guild or associations. We can really perceive and understand the importance of the city for the merit of merchandising and obviously the beauty that you see behind me, which is something that, wow, when you come here, the pictures don't do justice to when you're here. And then you understand why Philip came here, why John came here, why Paul came here, and why is this even mentioned in connection with Laodicea? Not only for the thermals and the hot springs, but also for the beauty that you have here and for the importance of the Greco-Roman world as an imperial city.